The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Metropolitan Grand Hotel like an angry symphony. Inside the Crystal Ballroom, New York's elite mingled beneath glittering chandeliers, their laughter and conversations creating a bubble of warmth against the storm's fury. Vincent Sterling stood near the bar, his tailored midnight blue tuxedo fitting his tall frame perfectly. At 32, he commanded attention without trying. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his emerald eyes sharp and calculating as they surveyed the crowd of donors, politicians, and socialites. Vincent was the youngest billionaire to grace the Forbes list. Having built Sterling Industries from a small tech startup into a global empire, tonight's charity gala was just another obligation on his endless calendar of corporate duties. He sipped his whiskey, the amber liquid burning slightly as it went down. But it did nothing to ease the restlessness that had plagued him for months. Success had brought him everything money could buy, yet he felt emptier than ever, an artist in disguise across the ballroom. Rosalie Chen moved gracefully between the guests, a silver tray balanced expertly in her hands. At 26, she possessed an ethereal beauty that seemed almost out of place among the hired staff. Her long black hair was pulled back in an elegant chignon, revealing the delicate curve of her neck. Her deep brown eyes held an intelligence and creativity that would have captivated anyone who bothered to truly see her. But tonight, she was invisible. Just another face in the army of servers ensuring the wealthy guests never had empty glasses or plates. What none of them knew was that Rosalie had a master's degree in fine arts from Columbia. Her paintings hung in small galleries downtown, but they barely paid her rent. This catering job was just one of 3 she worked to survive. In the expensive city while pursuing her passion, she watched the guests with the eye of an artist, noting how they moved, how they laughed, how they performed their roles in this elaborate social theater. Her fingers itched for her paintbrush, wanting to capture the interplay of light and shadow. The masks people wore in public versus their true selves. When lightning strikes, Vincent checked his platinum watch, calculating how much longer he needed to stay to fulfill his social obligations. The evening felt interminable, filled with the same shallow conversations and transparent networking attempts. He was considering making his exit when his phone buzzed with a text message. "Vincent, darling, I'm here. Meet me by the East Corridor. We need to discuss the Hamptons property." Catherine's jaw tightened at the message from his ex-fiancée. Catherine Wellington came from old money and had expected their relationship to be a merger of 2 powerful families. When Vincent had broken their engagement 6 months ago, citing a lack of genuine connection, she had not taken it gracefully. Her persistent attempts to reconcile had become increasingly manipulative. Vincent drained his glass and moved toward the corridor, his expensive Italian shoes clicking against the marble floor. He wanted to get this conversation over with quickly. The storm outside seemed to intensify, thunder rumbling ominously through the building's steel and glass structure. Meanwhile, Rosalie had just finished serving champagne to a group of women dripping in diamonds and designer gowns. Their conversation about their latest purchases and vacation homes made her think of her own tiny studio apartment, with its leaking ceiling and temperamental heating. She was heading back to the kitchen when the lights began to flicker ominously. Darkness falls, the power went out with a sudden, complete finality. The ballroom plunged into absolute darkness, causing gasps and nervous laughter from the guests. Emergency lighting would kick in soon, but for now, everyone was blind in the opulent space that had become as dark as a cave. Vincent had been walking toward the east corridor when the blackout hit. Paused, disoriented, his hand reaching out to steady himself against what he hoped was a wall. The familiar sounds of the party had shifted into confused murmurs and the shuffling of feet as people tried to navigate the darkness. Rosalie had been near the corridor entrance when everything went black. She stood perfectly still for a moment, listening. Her artist's training had taught her to be observant, to use all her senses, and right now, she could hear someone moving nearby. She took a careful step forward, one hand extended to avoid colliding with furniture or walls. That's when it happened. Vincent, thinking he was moving toward where Catherine would be waiting, took several steps into what he believed was the corridor. At the same moment, Rosalie, trying to find her way back to the kitchen, moved in the same direction. They collided gently in the darkness, Vincent's hands instinctively reached out to steady what he assumed was his ex-fiancée. "Catherine," he murmured, his voice low and slightly breathless from the disorientation of the blackout, before either of them could speak or think. Vincent's lips found hers in the darkness. It was meant to be a familiar kiss of greeting, the kind of casual intimacy he had shared with Catherine countless times. But the moment their lips touched, something extraordinary happened. The kiss that changed everything, this kiss was nothing like the polite, predictable kisses Vincent had exchanged with Catherine. This was electric, passionate, and completely unexpected. The woman in his arms felt different too. She was slightly shorter, her body softer. She smelled like jasmine and rain instead of Catherine's signature expensive perfume. Rosalie's heart nearly stopped when the stranger's lips met hers. She should have pulled away immediately, should have corrected his obvious mistake, but something kept her frozen in place. The kiss was gentle, yet intense, tender, yet filled with an inexplicable longing. She had never been kissed like this before, as if the person kissing her had been searching for her his entire life, for a moment that felt like eternity. They were lost in each other. Vincent's arms tightened around her, and Rosalie's hands somehow found their way to his chest, feeling the strong, steady beat of his heart through his shirt. The chaos of the darkened ballroom faded away until there was nothing but the two of them in this impossible, perfect moment. When light returns, the emergency lighting system finally activated, bathing the ballroom in a soft amber glow. Vincent and Rosalie sprang apart as if struck by lightning, both of them blinking in the sudden illumination. For a heartbeat, they simply stared at each other, trying to process what had just happened. Vincent's breath caught in his throat. The woman before him was not Catherine. She was younger, more beautiful in a natural, unadorned way that made his chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't name. Her dark eyes were wide with surprise and something that looked like wonder. Her lips, still slightly parted from their kiss, were the color of rose petals. "You're not Catherine," he said stupidly, his voice barely above a whisper. Rosalie felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment and something else she didn't want to analyze too closely. She took a step backward, smoothing down her simple black server's dress with trembling hands. "I'm sorry," she stammered. "I think there was a mistake. The blackout, I couldn't see." "No," Vincent interrupted, stepping closer to her. "Apologize." As he paused, searching for words that could capture what he had just experienced. "That was the most real thing I've felt in years." The escape around them. The ballroom was slowly returning to normalcy as the full lighting system came back online. Guests were laughing about the adventure. Servers were checking on everyone. And the evening was resuming its predictable course. But Vincent and Rosalie remained in their own bubble, studying each other as if trying to memorize every detail. Rosalie knew she needed to get back to work before her supervisor noticed her absence. Her job depended on being invisible, efficient, and professional. Standing here staring at what was obviously a very wealthy, very important guest was the opposite of all those things. "I have to go," she whispered, taking another step back. Vincent reached out his hand, not quite touching her, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of his skin. "What's your name?" For a moment she hesitated. Giving him her name would make this real, would acknowledge that what had just happened between them mattered. But looking into his eyes, seeing the genuine curiosity and something that looked like hope, she found herself answering. "Rosalie," she said softly. "Rosalie Chen." "Rosalie," he repeated, and the way he said her name made her knees weak. "I'm Vincent. Vincent Sterling." Al Sterling, her eyes widened slightly. His face had been on magazine covers. His business deals made headlines. He was exactly the kind of man who lived in a completely different world from hers. "I really have to go," she said again, more urgently this time, before Vincent could respond. She turned and hurried away, disappearing into the crowd of servers and guests. He watched her go, his heart still racing from their unexpected encounter. As she vanished from sight, he realized something that both thrilled and terrified him. That kiss in the darkness had awakened something in him that he thought had died long ago. For the first time in years, Vincent Sterling felt truly alive, and it was all because of a woman whose name was Rosalie Chen, and who had just disappeared back into the shadows of his perfectly ordered world. The The storm outside was beginning to calm, but inside Vincent's chest, a different kind of tempest was just beginning. The sleepless CEO 3 days had passed since the blackout kiss, and Vincent Sterling hadn't slept more than a few hours total. He sat in his corner office on the 40th floor of Sterling Tower, staring out at the Manhattan skyline without really seeing it. The city bustled below him, millions of people going about their lives. But all he could think about was one woman with dark eyes and rose-petal lips. Vincent had built his empire through focus and determination. Yet now he found himself completely distracted. During board meetings, he caught himself thinking about the way Rosalie had felt in his arms. While reviewing quarterly reports, he remembered the soft sound she had made when their lips first touched. His assistant Margaret had commented twice on his unusual behavior, but Vincent couldn't explain what was happening to him. He had tried to find her through conventional means. A few discreet calls to the Metropolitan Grand Hotel had yielded nothing more than confirmation that she worked for an outside catering company. When he contacted the catering service, they cited privacy policies and refused to give him any information about their staff. It was the first time in years that Vincent's wealth and influence had failed to open doors for him. The artist's dilemma in her cramped studio apartment in Brooklyn. Rosalie stood before her easel, paintbrush suspended in midair. She had been trying to work on a commissioned piece, a landscape for a small gallery in Soho. But her mind kept wandering to that night at the hotel. Every time she closed her eyes, she could feel Vincent's arms around her, taste the whiskey on his lips, could remember the way her heart had nearly exploded when he kissed her. She had Googled him, of course. Vincent Sterling was even more successful and powerful than she had initially realized. His company was worth billions. He owned properties around the world, and he dated socialites and models whose photographs appeared in glossy magazines. She was a struggling artist who worked 3 jobs to pay rent on a studio apartment with a view of a brick wall. The rational part of her mind insisted that what happened was just a mistake, a case of wrong place and wrong time during a power outage. Why, her heart remembered something else entirely. She remembered the way he had said her name like it was something precious. She remembered the genuine surprise in his eyes when the lights came back on, the way he had looked at her as if she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. The unexpected return on Friday evening. Rosalie was working another catering event, this time at a smaller but equally elegant venue in Midtown. The Meridian Gallery was hosting an opening for a contemporary art exhibition, and the crowd was a mix of art collectors, critics, and wealthy patrons. She moved through the crowd with practiced ease, offering connapps and champagne while observing the artwork on display. She paused in front of a large abstract painting, studying the way the artist had used color to convey emotion. The piece reminded her of her own work, though hers tended toward more realistic subjects with touches of magical realism. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" a familiar voice said behind her. Rosalie's heart stopped. She turned slowly, knowing exactly who she would see, but still unprepared for the impact of Vincent's presence. He stood there in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, his green eyes fixed intently on her face. "Mr. Sterling," she managed to say, her voice surprisingly steady despite the chaos in her chest. "I didn't expect to see you here. I've been looking for you," he admitted, stepping closer. "I attended 4 different events this week hoping to find you. Margaret thinks I've lost my mind." Rosalie glanced around nervously, aware that she was supposed to be working, not having conversations with guests. "I should get back to work. My supervisor will notice if I'm not circulating." Vincent followed her gaze and seemed to understand her predicament. "When do you finish tonight?" She hesitated, knowing she should make an excuse and walk away. Getting involved with someone like Vincent Sterling was asking for heartbreak. But the memory of their kiss, the way it had made her feel alive in a way she had never experienced before, made her answer honestly. 11 o'clock, she said softly. "Meet me at the coffee shop on the corner. Please, Rosalie."
Just give me an hour to talk to you.
Shh. The late-night confession the coffee shop was nearly empty when Rosalie arrived at 11:15. Shh. Out of her server's uniform into jeans and a soft blue sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. Vincent was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of him. He had removed his suit jacket and tie, and his shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, making him look younger and more approachable. He stood when he saw her, pulling out her chair with an old-fashioned courtesy that surprised her. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." Rosalie wrapped her hands around the warm coffee cup, using it as an anchor. "I almost didn't." "We're from completely different worlds, are we?" He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Gus, when I kissed you in the dark, it didn't feel like we were from different worlds. It felt like we were from the same one, like we had been searching for each other without knowing it." She felt her cheeks warm at his words. "It was an accident. Thought I was someone else." "Maybe it started as an accident, but it became something else the moment our lips touched. Tell me you didn't feel it too, Rosalie. Tell me I'm imagining this connection between us." She couldn't tell him that because it would be a lie. The connection was real, undeniable, and terrifying in its intensity. "What I felt doesn't matter. You're Vincent Sterling. You date supermodels and socialites. I'm a broke artist who serves canapes at parties to pay rent." Vincent reached across the table and covered her hand with his. The touch sent electricity, shooting up her arm. "I don't want supermodels or socialites. I want you. I want the woman who kisses like she's pouring her soul into it. I want the woman whose eyes light up when she looks at art. I want Rosalie Chen." The threat emerges their conversation was interrupted by the sharp click of high heels on the coffee shop's tile floor. Vincent's expression immediately darkened as a tall blonde woman in an expensive designer dress approached their table. Even without an introduction, Rosalie knew instantly who this must be. Catherine Wellington was everything Rosalie was not. She was tall where Rosalie was petite, blonde where Rosalie was brunette. She wore her wealth and social status like armor. Her blue eyes were cold as they assessed Rosalie before focusing on Vincent. "So, this is where you've been hiding," Catherine said, her voice carrying the crisp accent of old money and private schools. "Margaret mentioned you've been acting strangely lately. I never imagined it was because you were slumming with the help." Vincent's hand tightened on Rosalie's. "Catherine, leave. Now." "Oh, I don't think so, darling. You and I have unfinished business, and I don't intend to let some little nobody interfere with our future together." Catherine's smile was sharp as a blade. "Did you tell her about our engagement, Vincent? Did you mention that our wedding was supposed to be next month before you got cold feet?" Rosalie felt her heart sink. Vincent had been engaged to this woman, had planned to marry her. What was she thinking, allowing herself to believe that someone like Vincent could be seriously interested in someone like her? "Our engagement is over, Catherine. It has been for months. What we had wasn't love, it was convenience, and I'm not settling for that anymore." Catherine laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. "Love. How romantic. But love doesn't pay for penthouse apartments or designer gowns or trips to Monaco, does it, dear?" Her gaze fixed on Rosalie. "What exactly do you think you can offer a man like Vincent? He needs a woman who can stand beside him in his world, not someone who serves drinks at his parties." The choice. Rosalie stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Catherine's words had hit their mark, voicing all the doubts and insecurities she had been trying to ignore. "She's right, Vincent. This was a mistake. We're too different. Our lives are too different. That kiss was just a moment, not a future." "Rosalie, don't listen to her." Vincent stood too, reaching for her hand, but she stepped back. "I have to go. Please don't follow me." She rushed out of the coffee shop, leaving Vincent staring after her with his heart breaking. Catherine's satisfied. Smile made him want to do violence, but he controlled himself with effort. "Stay away from her, Catherine. And stay away from me. If you interfere with my life again, I'll destroy you financially and socially. Don't test me." Without waiting for her response, Vincent left the coffee shop and climbed into his waiting car. As his driver pulled into traffic, he made a decision. He wasn't giving up on Rosalie Chen. Catherine had won this battle, but the war was far from over. 2 weeks had passed since the confrontation at the coffee shop, and Rosalie had thrown herself into her art with desperate intensity. Her small studio apartment had become a cocoon where she could hide from the world and the complicated feelings that Vincent Sterling had awakened in her. Canvas after canvas bore the evidence of her emotional turmoil. Dark, stormy paintings that seemed to capture the conflict between desire and reason, hope and reality. She had quit the catering job unable, to bear the possibility of running into Vincent again at another high society event. Instead, she had taken on extra shifts at a small cafe in Brooklyn and picked up freelance graphic design work online. The pay was less consistent, but it allowed her to avoid the world where she might encounter him again. Her phone had rung countless times with calls from unknown numbers, and she suspected at least some of them were from Vincent, but she never answered. She had also received a large floral arrangement with no card, and another day a messenger had delivered a small package containing a book of poetry by Pablo Neruda. She had kept the book but hadn't opened it, afraid of what message it might contain late at night, when the city grew quiet and she was alone with her thoughts. Rosalie would sometimes touch her lips and remember the kiss that had started everything. In those vulnerable moments, she would wonder what might have happened if Catherine Wellington hadn't appeared at the coffee shop. If the differences in their social status weren't so vast, if love could truly conquer all the obstacles between them, the CEO's determination, Vincent, had transformed into a man possessed. He had hired a private investigator to learn everything he could about Rosalie Chen without actually stalking or harassing her. He discovered that she was 26 years old, had graduated summa cum laude from Columbia with a master's in fine arts, and that her paintings had been featured in several small galleries around the city. She was talented, brilliant, and beautiful, and he was more determined than ever to win her back. He visited every gallery that had ever shown her work, studying her paintings with the intensity of a scholar. Her art revealed layers of her personality that he found captivating. There was passion in her brushstrokes, vulnerability in her color choices, and a romantic idealism that made his chest ache with longing. One painting in particular stopped him cold. It was a nighttime scene of two figures embracing in the shadows, surrounded by the glow of city lights. The piece was titled Blackout, and he knew with certainty that it was inspired by their kiss. Vincent purchased the painting immediately, paying triple the asking price. That night, he hung it in his penthouse apartment, where he could see it every morning when he woke up. It became his daily reminder of what he was fighting for: the sabotage Catherine Wellington had not been idle during those 2 weeks. Her social connections and family wealth had given her access to information and influence that she wielded like weapons. Once she had learned about Rosalie's artistic career and had begun a subtle campaign of sabotage, gallery owners who had previously been interested in Rosalie's work suddenly stopped returning her calls. A commission she had been counting on was mysteriously withdrawn. Applications for grants and residencies that she had submitted were rejected without explanation. Catherine was careful to leave no direct evidence of her involvement, but the pattern was clear to anyone looking closely enough. The final blow came when Rosalie's landlord informed her that the building had been sold and she had 30 days to vacate her apartment. The new owner, a shell company that Catherine controlled through intermediaries, planned to renovate the entire building for luxury condominiums. Facing homelessness and the systematic destruction of her artistic career, Rosalie finally understood the true power of wealth and social position. Catherine's message was clear: stay away from Vincent Sterling, or watch everything you've worked for disappear. The rescue Vincent's private investigator had been monitoring Catherine's activities, suspecting that she wouldn't simply accept his rejection gracefully. When he learned about the coordinated attacks on Rosalie's life and career, his fury was cold and calculating. Catherine had made a crucial error in underestimating his determination and his own capacity for ruthless action when someone he cared about was threatened. Within 24 hours, Vincent had unraveled Catherine's schemes. The gallery owners who had been pressured to drop Rosalie found themselves offered lucrative deals and partnerships through Sterling Industries' extensive network. The new owner of Rosalie's building was forced to sell to one of Vincent's subsidiaries at a significant loss. The commission that had been withdrawn was replaced by 3 others, each paying substantially more. But Vincent's most decisive action was to approach Catherine directly. He arranged to meet her at the exclusive country club where she spent her afternoons, and his message was delivered with the quiet menace of a man who had built an empire through strategic warfare. You have 48 hours to undo every bit of damage you've caused to Rosalie Chen's career and life, he told her, his voice dangerously calm. If you don't, I will destroy the Wellington family fortune so completely that you'll be lucky to get a job waiting tables at your family's social Standing, your trust fund, your father's business connections, all of it will disappear. I have the resources and the motivation to make it happen." Catherine's face had gone pale, but she maintained her composure. "You would ruin me for a nobody?" "I would burn down the entire social structure of this city for her," Vincent replied. "Don't doubt my commitment, Catherine. You know me well enough to know I don't make empty threats." The grand gesture with Catherine's interference neutralized. Vincent planned the most important presentation of his life. He had learned that Rosalie would be attending the opening of a group, an exhibition at a gallery in Chelsea, where one of her paintings was being featured. It would be her first public appearance since Catherine's campaign against her began. Vincent arrived at the gallery early, before the official opening, and found Rosalie standing in front of her painting. She looked thinner than he remembered, and there were shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and stress. She wore a simple black dress that he recognized from their first meeting. But she was still the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. "Hello, Rosalie," he said softly, approaching her carefully as if she were a wild creature that might bolt at any sudden movement. She turned, and he saw a flash of pain in her dark eyes before she composed herself. "Vincent, I should have known. You'd be here? Did you buy this gallery too?" Her bitter tone cut him deeper than any insult could have. "I deserve that. I know what Catherine did to you, and I know you probably blame me for it." "Do you?" she asked, her voice steady, but her hands trembling slightly. "Because the truth is, Vincent, this is exactly what I was afraid of. Your world has rules I don't understand, games I can't play. Catherine Wellington can destroy my entire life with a few phone calls, and there's nothing I can do to stop her." "She can't hurt you anymore," Vincent said, stepping closer. "I've made sure of that. But you're right about one thing. My world can be cruel and ruthless, especially to people I care about. That's why I want to change it." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. "This is the deed to the building where your studio is located. It's yours now. Free and clear. The gallery owners who dropped you have all expressed renewed interest in your work. Your career is not only restored but enhanced." Rosalie stared at the envelope as if it contained a poisonous snake. "I can't accept this. It's too much, and it doesn't solve the real problem between us." "Then let me solve the real problem," Vincent said, his voice urgent with emotion. "Rosalie, I've spent my entire adult life building walls around my heart, convincing myself that success was enough, that I didn't need real connection or love. Then I kissed you in the dark, and everything I thought I knew about myself changed." The declaration the gallery was beginning to fill with other attendees, but Vincent only had eyes for Rosalie. "I love you," he said simply, "not because you're beautiful, though you are, not because you're talented, though your art moves me in ways I can't describe. I love you because you make me want to be better than I am. You make me want to tear down the walls I've built and live authentically." Tears were streaming down Rosalie's face now, but she shook her head. "Love isn't enough, Vincent. Look what happened when Catherine decided I was a threat. What happens the next time someone from your world decides I don't belong? Then I'll handle them the same way I handled Catherine," Vincent replied fiercely. "Rosalie, I'm not asking you to become someone else or fit into my world exactly as it exists. I'm asking you to help me create a new world. One where what matters is who we are to each other, not what society expects us to be." He took her hands in his, not caring that people around them were beginning to stare. "Marry me? Not because it makes social sense or because it benefits our careers, but because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Because when I kiss you, I feel like I'm finally home." Rosalie looked into Vincent's eyes and saw her own future reflected there. She saw challenges, certainly. There would always be people who questioned their relationship, who tried to tear them apart because they came from different worlds. But she also saw love, genuine and deep and transformative. She saw a man who was willing to risk everything he had built for the chance to build something better with her. "Yes," she whispered, and then louder, "Yes, Vincent Sterling. I'll marry you." The gallery erupted in applause from the other attendees who had been watching the romantic drama unfold. Vincent swept Rosalie into his arms and kissed her deeply, passionately, without caring who was watching. This kiss was different from their first one in the darkness. This was a kiss full of promise and certainty. A kiss that sealed their commitment to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. The happy ending 6 months later. Vincent and Rosalie were married in a small, intimate ceremony at a vineyard inn, Napa Valley. The guest list was carefully curated to include only people who genuinely supported their love story. Rosalie wore a simple but elegant dress that she had designed herself. And Vincent's vows moved everyone to tears as he spoke about finding light in the darkness and love in the most unexpected places. Their wedding reception was held under the stars with strings of lights, creating a magical atmosphere reminiscent of that fateful night when the blackout had brought them together. As they danced their first dance as husband and wife, Vincent whispered in Rosalie's ear, "Thank you for teaching me that the best things in life happen in the dark. When we stop trying to control everything and just trust our hearts." Rosalie smiled up at him, her eyes sparkling with happiness. "Thank you for finding me in the darkness and loving me in the light." Their love story became legendary in New York social circles, not because it was conventional, but because it proved that real love could triumph over any obstacle. Vincent incorporated Rosalie's artistic vision into his business empire, creating a foundation that supported emerging artists and funded public art projects throughout the city. Rosalie's career flourished beyond her wildest dreams, but more importantly, she had found her soulmate in the most unexpected way. Years later, they told the story of how they met to their children. They would always emphasize the same moral: sometimes the best things in life happen when we least expect them. In the darkness, when we can't see what's coming, but we trust our hearts to guide us